What's up guys, this is Teddy. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This video going to be teaching you guys about float versus double in Java. So float versus double. As I talked about in my data types overview video, floats and doubles are going to be just decimal numbers. Integers, int, long, those are all going to be whole numbers. So major distinction there. If there's anything that you need to remember, it's really that. Floating type numbers are decimal numbers. The other peculiar thing about floats are doubles is how they are casted. And you don't need to don't get too overwhelmed. Right now, we're just going to go back to playing our game that we were playing before, and that is break the float. So let's just go to our float here, going to just play a dumb little mini game, and we're going to say let's break the float. And essentially what we are going to do here is see how many decimal places. Before we just were typing digits down, but in this example, let's see how many decimal places it takes before we actually are able to break the float. And as you can see here, that we're getting a strange error. You may have been thinking like, Teddy, well, you said we have 7-digit decimal places before the float is actually going to break. Well, that is true, but we also have to put an F here because this is very, 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 very important. And I feel bad for people who skip this video because this is just like a weird thing that is just with both. This isn't C# too, but this Java, C#, both languages are just weird like this. Whenever you are converting or whenever you have a float, you always need to be cognizant and aware that you are putting an F after the digits. And this is where you can see, you see here, like I probably would have just went going on and been like, well, now this is a double. But in this case, whenever you have a float, you have to put an F there because underneath the hood, super, super important, the compiler is converting it over into a double. So let's just look at it. Let's try to break a double. So let's go over here or let's just take a float and let's do the same thing. And we'll go, how can we get this thing to actually have a how can we actually display 16 digits? We actually have to display a double. Well, we could go, you could put the D here, and that would, to a certain extent, convert to a double, but that means that the type checking is not going to be able to actually take care of that. So break the float. Oh, okay, I need to put break the float, break the double. So we're going to have a double here. So if you want a very long decimal point, you have to have the double here. You can take off the D, but if it ever gives you a issue, make sure that you're either putting a D if it's a double or you're putting an F on the end if it's a float. And if you don't, watch what happens. And if you hover over it, you're going to get this weird thing right here that says required type float. And you may be thinking to yourself, well, it is a float. What are you talking about? It's because you have to go in here and you have to add that F. It's just one of those weird things. So let's talk about the next gotcha whenever we are talking about floats. The next is going to be division. Division is another strange thing in both C# and Java in that whenever you have an integer, so if I have an integer value and I try to divide, let's say I divide 5 divided by 3, this is actually just going to show a 2 because it's integer division. It's not going to show the decimal. And if you want it to actually show the decimal, what you have to do is you have to go here, you have to go to float, and you have to actually declare everything a float or a double. In fact, I would actually declare it a double. I think doubles are doubles are more common. You don't have to mess with them as much, and if you ever need a float, you can just quickly convert it into a float because everything is being converted to a double underneath the hood. So let's just see the difference between the two, and we're going to console log out these. So we're going to go integer value, and we're also going to system out SOUT. We are going to log my double. So we're going to go down here, and we are also going to log my double. And let's see, we can run it over here with this green button, whichever green button you want to use, doesn't really matter. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to run this and see what happens. So as you can see here, 5 divided by 3 is going to give us a 1, and it gives us the actual decimal place. When we have just the integer and we divide it by 3, it doesn't give us anything because it's just an integer value and it's not a actual it's not an actual, it's just an integer and it's not an actual decimal place. But anyway, that's going to be the difference between float versus double. If you guys enjoyed this, make sure to hit that like button, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and as always, thank you for watching.